Hello and welcome back to AP World History Modern. Today we're going to begin our first day in a two-day look at South and Southeast Asia, Unit 1.3. Our learning objective is explain how the various belief systems and practices of South and Southeast Asia affected societies over time. And we'll be focusing in on cultural developments, right? Cultural developments. All right. And we'll be doing a claim activity here as well. All right, so South and Southeast Asia. All right, so this is probably one of the more recognizable Southeast Asian cultural sites. Hopefully you know what that is. All right, so this is Angkor Wat. It is in what is today modern-day Cambodia. All right, so we'll begin today with our daily five. All right, so question one, based on the information provided by this map, which statement about urban areas between 650 and 1500 is correct? So go ahead and take a minute, pause, read through these, come back when you're done. All right, so hopefully you got the correct answer was 4. Most urban areas developed near waterways. All right, second question. Creation of colorful murals in the Njada caves, development of decimal system and concept of zero, trade with Persia and East African cities. These accomplishments occurred in, so go ahead and take a moment and look. All right, so hopefully you got South Asia as the correct answer there. All right, last, based on the information on this map, which statement is a valid conclusion? So take a moment. All right, so walking back and hopefully you got the correct answer was 1. Indian Ocean trade existed before European age of exploration. Of course, that is referencing post-Vasco da Gama. How does that sound? So 1497 da Gama, really 1500s. You know, that was the European age of exploration. All right, so let's get going. Major things to understand, right, as we kind of get going today. Turkic invaders spread Islam into South Asia. So when you hear about the Delhi Sultanate, right, that's referring to Turkic invaders spreading Islam, right, through conquering. So Delhi, named after the city, Sultanate is that Islamic political title. So that being the case, we still see Hinduism remains the religion of the majority of the population. So even as we go into the 20th century, so that'll be the better part of 1,000 years under, at least in the Ganges River Valley, under Islamic control. So even after hundreds of years, close to 1,000 years, we see approximately 30% of the population of South Asia will become Islamic, become Muslim, while the majority will be Hindu. And even with Islamic control of the Ganges River Valley, you're still going to see many places right, that are under Hindu princes. So, for example, the Rajputs. Right? So Islam will spread into Southeast Asia via merchants, right, and missionaries, specifically Sufis. And this is a new vocab word here, so let's be aware of this. Islamization. So when we talk about the spread of any religion, right, we have our various categories of analysis of how religion spreads. Conquering, missionaries, merchant activity, right, etc. And in a lot of these cases, like in Southeast Asia or in Sub-Saharan West Africa, we will see merchants diffusing the religion, spreading the religion. But with that, you're going to see conversion of Islam to Islam in both Sub-Saharan West Africa and in Southeast Asia amongst the merchants and amongst the political elite. But you do not see widespread conversion by the vast majority of the populations in said places. And this is where Sufi missionaries will come into play, right? So when you start talking about Islamization, this is diffusing the religion down into the society itself. And you could say this about any religion, right? So Christianization, for example, we're talking about the Christianization of the Americas, right? You could look at missionary activity as well, right? People like the Jesuits, the Dominicans, etc. Religion in Southeast in South Asia saw increased usage of mysticism. So Sufi missionaries made Islam appealing by assimilating it to existing religious traditions, resulting in increased conversion. And then, of course, Bhakti. The Bhakti movement, it's very similar to Sufism, but for Hinduism. So, Bhakti will make Hinduism more accessible to individuals in lower castes and women. And we're going to see this through a lot of different techniques, but a lot of increased mysticism, and then they focus on devotional cults. So, like, for example, this is a bronze image that we see in a lot in southern South Asia, as well as parts of Southeast Asia. Right, so this is Shiva. Okay. All right. So that all being said, hopefully you can look at this map and that makes a little sense to you. So we have this here, the kind of Ganges River Valley, and this is the kind of central hub for the Delhi Sultanate. But even with control, you still see a lot of Hindu princes, right? And of course, not all of South Asia will come under Delhi Sultanate rule. That never will happen. Right? And of course, it's from this region of South Asia that we see Hinduism being diffused into Southeast Asia. Right. So this right, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Right, and then of course, once Islam gets established, you'll see Islam being diffused out as well. All right. So hopefully that makes a little bit more sense. All right, this is just looking at innovations, right? We've already talked about a lot of these, but you can see that some of these are being diffused across the Silk Road, but a lot of these, when they start talking about the Indian Ocean, are going to kind of begin to get diffused in mass, like porcelains and the such, right? We're simply going to be looking at an intensification of that interaction. All right, so Rajputs, if you want a little kind of facts about this, then feel free to kind of pause on this. And this is kind of looking at the different Central Asian, Turkic Islamic invasions that do come through, right? And of course, if you're talking about the spread of Islam, right, originally it's going to come into South Asia via merchant activity, right? However, you do start to see, right, kind of military encroachment, and then Central Asian groups, right? So kind of the first wave, second wave, right? By this point, they have the whole Ganges River Valley, right? And then eventually the Delhi Sultanate. All right. And of course, this is always kind of good to just be aware of, like, how does this matter? Why does this matter to today? When you look at where the vast majority of Muslims live on planet Earth, it is not in the Middle East. It is in Southeast Asia and South Asia. That is where the vast majority of Muslims on planet Earth live today. So the most populous Islamic country today is Indonesia, right? And of course, when you start talking about in the neighborhood of 20 to 30% of 1.4 billion, 1.3 billion people, right? You've got more Muslims in India than what you have in the entire population of, like, the United States. So these are sizable numbers, right? All right. So Sufism, so you had a homework about that, so I don't want to spend really much time on this. I would suggest, one things that we would do in class is we would probably watch a little video clip on whirling dervishes, which is simply one manifestation of Sufi mysticism. It's kind of a Turkish syncretism, right, with Islam. And so maybe I'll put a link for that on the page. All right. Bhakti, I do want to spend just a moment on this, though. Literally means devotion to or fondness for, movement towards a more spiritual relationship, right? Not based on studying, right, but based on other ways, right? Could be poetry, could be literature, yoga, right? So Vedic rituals, right? Typically with Hinduism, it's presented through studying or Vedic rituals. Monastic life, right? As far as being able to achieve moksha, rising up in that Varna cycle. Bhakti is more focused on a single aspect of the Brahma, right? And of course, caste and gender are less pronounced, right? So it provides women and people lower on the Varna scale or the Varna system a path for spiritual salvation, right? So poetry, songs, given a high level of importance. And this symbol, I actually saw this on the back of a car on Saturday when I was out for a walk. So you see a lot of kind of Bhakti symbolism, I guess, increasingly associated with yoga practices, as yoga becomes more prevalent here in the United States. So be aware of Bhakti. There is in your homework a suggested couple pages of reading about Bhakti. This would be worth your time to read. All right, so if we're talking about the diffusion of Hinduism, and of course Bhakti originates down here, but if you're talking about the diffusion of Hinduism into Southeast Asia, this largely begins in large amounts in the 900s with the Chola, right? The Cholans, and you see what Chola is here. So the Cholan Empire, will kind of spring from southern Asia and diffuse its way across and establish, economic ties. And with those economic ties, right, with merchant activity, we see the diffusion of Hinduism here. All right, so when we look at like the Khmer Empire, right, in the ceremonial center here in the capital at Angkor Wat, this is a Hindu complex originally. Southern part of Vietnam today is would have been Hindu. So we see Hindu influence all through Southeast Asia, and that'll peak out around the 1100s, the 1200s, and then after the 1200s, you're going to see Hinduism fading in this region. With increased Islamic influence. So Buddhism will take over here, largely in this region. Will become Theravadan Buddhist, and then through the Malaccan Straits, we're going to see a very strong Islamic influence as we come into the 1400s. So that by the time we get to to 1500, this is largely going to be Islamic. Okay, so let's just kind of skip through here. All right, and you kind of pause if you want to kind of look at some of the modern Hindu percentages of the populations. So there's a persistent effect, right, of this Hindu diffusion. All right, so in class today, this is we spent the bulk of our time looking at this article. So there's a Craig Lockard article that you're going to be reading. And you're going to pick out 1 to 3 things and create a graphic organizer inspired by those 1 to 3 things, like that, right? Or like what you see in these pictures here. And then, within each graphic organizer, then you're going to put your relevant facts, okay? So what do I mean by this? Let me kind of give you an example. So this is an excerpt. So gradually, a more complex, increasingly integrated maritime trading system emerged that linked the Eastern Mediterranean, Middle East, East African coast, Persia, and India with societies of East and Southeast Asia. Over this network, the precious spices of Indonesia, especially cloves, nutmeg, pepper, the gold and the tin of Malay, and the silks and teas of China traveled to Europe, sparking interest there in reaching the sources of Eastern riches. Inevitably, then, the vigorously mercantile variation of Indianized classical culture emerged to capitalize on this growing exchange. All right, so in that paragraph, we have a main idea, and then if I continue reading, we're going to get some supporting evidence. Okay, so I would want to, as I kind of read through this, I would want to come up with a graphic organizer that might be inspired by this. So maybe I'll look at the Angkor, the Khmer Empire. I might look at a place like Angkor Wat because this is probably the most famous and well known of the Khmer sites. So I might look at Angkor Wat. Maybe I'll do a little graphic organizer, kind of shape like this, just roughly that shape, and then I might drop my facts into that, right? And so that's what you're really being asked to do, all right? Is to kind of pick one of these selections. in Google Classroom, you will see a link to this doc, and I guess I'll try to put it at the bottom of this the bottom of this YouTube page as well, or the YouTube link as well. So what you're really being asked to do here is pick one of these sections. You don't need to read the entire article. I just want you to pick one of these sections like this. They're usually between 2 paragraphs to 3 paragraphs. So read those 2 to 3 paragraphs, identify what the main idea is in that section, and then come up with some relevant facts. Obviously, the one I just gave you is now off the table. So, but there's plenty of sections to choose from. Just kind of skim through, find something you might be interested in, something that you might be interested in reading about, and then read that section. Identify the claim, identify the supporting evidence. And so in class today, I told the students, take today, just read through those 2 to 3 paragraphs, identify the claim and the in the evidence, and then maybe come up with your idea for your graphic organizer. And then tomorrow in class, I'll give you another, 15, 20 minutes to just work on that organizer and finish it. And then tomorrow you can then submit that by a classroom. All right. So that's about all for today. All right. So make sure you go through and get that article and pick that out. All right. That's all for today. Sabriati.